Hi, this is Matt McCormick. I'm in the Department of Philosophy at the California State University, Sacramento. This is for my Philosophy of Mind course, Phil 153. It's the second of two lectures we've done on Michael Graziano's attention schema theory of awareness. So let's dive in. Uh, so we've got a tiered account of consciousness that we've built up over the course of several weeks that's culminating here with Graziano giving us an account of what awareness is. And awareness is, on Graziano's account, a sort of second order, second level meta representation where you're putting yourself into uh, the representation and you're understanding attention itself. So it's a sort of peculiar difficult theory to get your head around. So let's just review what we've learned so far. Attention, when it occurs in animals, is when there is some stimulus in the environment that captures their attention, that they direct their attention to. And what happens is that they direct or allocate additional cognitive resources to it. So when you look more closely at the object in the in the periphery of your vision. You're directing your eyes, directing your mind power, looking over there, or say you're looking for your keys. Okay, so you're focusing your attention on this task. You're keeping yourself on task. You're going around the room looking for this particular thing, for this goal-directed activity that your nervous system is engaged in. You're trying to find your keys. So you're focused on that to the exclusion of all these other things. No, don't distract me. I've got to find my keys before I can do this next thing. So attention, whether it's top-down directed like that or whether it's bottom-up captured, you hear a loud noise and you startle and you look over there at it. So you're looking at it and you're now wanting to know what that is. Well, the other things that go on in your environment are not sort of in your awareness or in your attention. You're not thinking about those, you're thinking about the loud noise. So attention in these terms is selective signal enhancement. There's lots of signals in your environment. You're selecting some out to be enhanced, and what you're doing is focusing scarce cognitive resources on more survival salient events in the environment. So this evolved for obvious reasons that um, when creatures in evolutionary environments are trying to find food, trying to find prey, trying to evade being eaten by predators. Obviously, some details in their environments are more important than others, and they got to focus their attention on those. Food matters, survival matters, taking care of your offspring matters. So, selective signal enhancement evolved as an adaptive trait that improves creatures' ability to handle those sorts of tasks. Awareness, then, according to Graziano, and he's got a lot of neuroscience research from his lab in Princeton to back this up, is the brain's internal model of the process of attention that represents attention in ourselves and others. So awareness is attending to attention, or it's modeling attention itself. It's a second order meta representation of attention. So modeling ourselves and other creatures with attention, knowing my thoughts and their thoughts, directing my behavior and predicting theirs is highly adaptive. So it's not just useful to me to be able to direct my attention at objects in my environment, but there's some objects in my environment that themselves have attention. So some creatures, and their behavior matters greatly to me. So if they are, sorry, there's some creatures in my environment that also have attention, and their behavior matters greatly to me. If they're of my own species, I want to know what they're doing. If they're another species, if they're a predator species, I want to know what they're doing, and I want to know what they're thinking about. I want to know what they care about. I want to know where their attention is directed currently. Are they looking at me? Are they going to eat me? Is it possible for me to eat them? Is that something that I can catch? Or have some other sort of important evolutionary connection to. So being able to first off parse objects or creatures in my environment that have attention don't have it, and being able to understand or model what that attention is. So if I see another hominid or another primate who's attending to some object, well, that might matter to me. They might be attending to something that's food. They might be paying attention to me. They might be paying attention to something else that's dangerous in the environment. And I want to know what they're thinking about. That matters to my survival too. So this second order capacity to model attention comes on the evolutionary scene and enables this sort of expanded capacity to keep track of what's going on in my environment, not just objects that themselves don't have attention, but now with awareness, I can separate out the objects that have attention, the ones that don't, because the ones that have attention really matter to me, and then I can model and keep track of what they're doing, what they're thinking about, and so on. And part of Graziano's point here is that the same mechanism that I'm using to model their attention, I'm using to model my own. In fact, he thinks it evolved to sort of direct my own attention first. So awareness evolved first as a means for me to monitor or keep track of my own attention. And because if I know what my attention's on, I know what it's not on, and I'm able to pursue goal-directed activities, I can find my keys. I can say to myself and set a goal, I need to find my keys. So I'm going to keep looking until I find them. So I'm directing my attention. Well, I can't do that if I don't know what my attention is, if I can't have this second order representation of what my attention's doing. There's lots of cases where you attend without awareness. That is, you're not sort of reflecting on the secondary level, but your attention is being drawn to this thing, then to that thing. You're driving, you're sort of blind driving, you're not thinking about it, but your cognitive resources are being dedicated to things like keeping track of the stoplights, keeping track of the other cars around you. So you're attending, but you're not sort of fully second order modeling or thinking about and being self-aware about where your attention's going. But if I can use my awareness to focus and direct and sort of model, okay, what is it that I'm looking at now? What am I thinking about now? Does that fit in with my purposes, my goals? Is that part of my long-term planning? Is that what I'm imagining? And so on. So awareness has this expanded evolutionary function, both in my modeling my own behavior and keeping track of what my attention's doing and keeping track of the attention of others. So awareness then is attending to attention, or it's the second order modeling. The internal report then that we get back from this turn. So when awareness takes hold of and models or represents what my attention does, it renders something for me. It gives me, it fills the screen for me, if you will. It makes the world look a certain way. That's the content of the report that awareness is given me when it directs itself to my attention. So Graziano's got a number of claims here. One of them is that awareness is an attention schema. So it's a sort of template that I use to separate attending creatures from non-attending creatures, myself included, and I apply it to myself and to others. And furthermore, he's curious about and wants to explain what the nature of that report or nature of the content that results from that cognitive act is. And he's got some really interesting things to say about the nature of it, ones that get at some really old difficult philosophical problems. So Graziano argues then that the internal report that you get from this second order the second order awareness is rendered as feels. It feels like pain or pleasure, or you note that you're feeling something when you look at your attention. And it's mysterious in origin. It's simplified, it's cartoon-like, just like your awareness of your body. I get this signals. I get this model. I know where my hands are. I know what they're doing. I'm aware of their position in space, but I don't know anything from my side about what the actual muscle fibers are doing, about the chemistry of the connection points in my bones or my muscles. There's hundreds of muscles that engage, something like 400 different little muscle structures that engage in our faces. And when we smile, we just know that we're smiling. You just have a feeling. You just have or you just know that somebody else is feeling, but you don't know what's going on inside there to make that happen. Okay, so the report is a kind of précis That is, it's shortened, it's truncated, but it's more than that. I actually think that Graziano should go further here. It's not just that it's simplified. It's not just that I'm getting um, a few or only some or some percentage of the information about the muscles. The very character of the report itself is fundamentally unlike the thing that is being represented. Like my experience of my face smiling, or my experience of your face smiling, or my experience of these things is rendered as feels, not as the facts about the chemistry involved in the event, or the photons that are streaming across the room that indicate the information. I'm getting no access to the real world, as it were, a mind-independent world. The world's being rendered into something minds can ponder, and those are feels. Those are subjective, phenomenal, qualitative feels. So he's hinting at a really surprising answer to this allegedly intractable, if you go back to Chalmers and the so-called heart problem, this allegedly intractable philosophical problem. There's no explaining why it is things feel the way they feel. Well, here's Graziano giving us an evolutionary neuroscientific account about why they feel the way they feel. So it feels mysterious in origin, it feels magical, with the physical mechanisms that produce it hidden from my view. I know you're conscious by looking at you and seeing you move your eyes around, or looking at something, or focusing on a book while you read it. And I have ideas about your thoughts instantly. I know when you're looking at something, I sort of divine that you're thinking about something. You hold up a magazine and focus on the headline. Okay, so I just understand that that thing is in your consciousness, is in your awareness, and I just have that sort of instant awareness of it, unavoidably and mysteriously. Graziano is fond of talking about um, ventriloquism puppets here, because he notes rightly that when you see a ventriloquist, and when they put their hand inside the puppet and then they make the puppet start to behave or start to look around or talk or what have you, it instantly takes on a cognitive personhood, life of itself, that you can't not see. You can't not see that as a being with a mind. That's what makes those acts funny or interesting or entertaining, is to see these two characters, these two persons interact on the stage, talk to each other, and see the puppet turns attention to other things. And that's part of this attention schema that's forcing its way. It's a sort of set of goggles that you see the world through, so that when you see certain kinds of objects, you see them as things with minds. And we'll get more to that. So awareness in you seems like a sort of immaterial ghost to me. And Graziano's got some really good discussions and even videos or TED Talk of him talking about ventriloquism, and how it's like the life comes into the thing and then the life vanishes from it when the ventriloquist stops operating the puppet. Okay, so what we're talking about then is theory of mind, not in the philosophical sense of us building a theory of mind, but in the sort of more classic evolutionary psychology sense. A theory of mind is that some creatures have theory of mind, some creatures don't. You have it, tumbleweeds don't. To represent an entity as possessing attention is to model it as having an internal, subjective, private experience, like I do. Versus not, like hydras and tumbleweeds. When I look at a tumbleweed, I don't see it as having some internal experience or some mind or some attention or some sort of magical field about it. But when you look at that picture, for instance, of that chimp, it's unavoidable. You see where its eyes are pointed, and you know that that chimp is thinking about what's on the end of that weed. She's gotten that weed. She stripped it off. You watch the chimps do this at the Sacramento Zoo. She's taken this weed, stripped it off, gotten it wet, and dipped it into the ant hive and pulled it out with the ants on it so she can eat the ants. So there's a purposeful, very deliberate activity there, and you can't not see it as a creature with a mind, a creature with intentions, with purposes, with goals, with ideas. Like, she's focusing her attention on that project and not on other things. Likewise with the tiger. That chimp has a mind, and she's focusing her attention on fishing ants out of the anthill right now. Our capacity to do that, to recognize that, to represent not just the external properties of objects such as color, but objects as possessing attention, is made possible by an attention schema. That's the second order template that we use to recognize objects with attention in the world, and that's what he calls awareness. So I promised this in the first week of the course that we would disambiguate or separate out some of these important concepts related to mind, like consciousness, like sentience, like attention. Now we understand what attention is, perception, and now we've got a very modern, very well argued theory about what awareness is. Awareness is your capacity to model another creature's attention. That chimp has black hair, she has a stick in her hand, and she is focusing intently on her task. Whereas creatures who don't have an attention schema can't recognize that about these other objects. You instantly and effortlessly know that you're being looked at by the tiger. You know that the tiger's thinking about you in a picture like that. He's got, his eyes on you and you are in his mind. And that's this internal metaphor that there's sort of no escaping. It makes it feel magical. And Graziano says this is why we're all sort of naturally dualists, is that the nature of that that possession, that model, the attention schema gives us this notion that some things are in mind and other things are not. So there's a possession. Taking mental possession of something is to have it be in a mind. But of course, minds don't have a physical place. I mean, we sort of think of the brain and the body as being where they are, but the mind is this other immaterial, sort of mysterious place where ideas live and where its attention is focused. So it's a kind of it's not a physically observable thing that way. Okay, so it turns out then that apes also have theory of mind. So that was us in the previous slide applying our theory of mind to that chimp. But there's been some really remarkable research, and I'll show you some here, where they're testing to see to whether and to what extent do chimpanzees themselves have theory of mind. So how much can they do that? Okay, so watch this video. And what's going to happen in this video is that you've got this keeper, we'll call the human in the back there is the keeper. And the keeper's going to come back and forth, and they're going to have this relationship. So what's happening is that they're up in the upper left-hand corner, there's a chimp who's watching this video. And the video is this exchange or this interaction between the keeper and the chimp. I'll call that the ape. So that's a human in an ape suit in the video. So the chimp is watching the keeper and the ape. And there's going to be these complicated interactions between them that are designed to expose or reveal whether or not the chimp has a theory of mind. And the way they're going to do this is they're going to use they've got an infrared camera that's being used to track the chimpanzee's eye movements. So the chimp that's watching this video that you're watching, the system is tracking its eye movements to see where that chimp is looking. And where she's looking is going to tell us about what she's thinking about or what expectations she has or what she is anticipating to happen. And some really interesting things happen here. So let me point out a few as we go through. Okay, so this is a false belief test for Hatsuka. That's her name, the chimp up in the corner. So the keeper looks in both huts. The ape comes in and strikes the keeper. Keeper comes back with a stick and goes after the ape. And Hatsuka anticipated and looked at that hut. So now the keeper looked and saw the ape go into that hut. And the keeper strikes that hut. Now watch what happens. Okay, so partly what's important here is that in the first two cases, the keeper, the ape attacks the keeper, and the ape runs inside a hut in view of the keeper's eyes. The keeper has got his face pointed at the ape, and he can see the ape go into the hut. Hatsuka is watching all of that and keeping track of who attacked who, who's coming after who, and Hatsuka knows where the ape is and knows where the keeper is and knows what the keeper knows. So Hatsuka looks, and you can see the red dot is her anticipating that the keeper's going to come back and go after the hut that houses the ape that the keeper saw the ape go into. But something really interesting happens right here. So right here, in sight of the keeper, the ape changes. Now the keeper's gone. Now the ape runs away. So now where's the ape? Okay, so what these researchers think they've just discovered is that even though Hatsuka saw the ape run away, Hatsuka still anticipates and expects the keeper to come out and attack the hut in which the keeper thinks the ape is hiding. That is, Hatsuka's keeping track of what the keeper knows and what the keeper doesn't know. The keeper doesn't know that the ape left, and Hatsuka realizes, well, the keeper thinks that the ape is in the hut. So that's a false belief test. Hatsuka knows the keeper has a false belief. Hatsuka keeps looking at and anticipating that the keeper will go back to that hut where the keeper last saw the ape, even though Hatsuka knows that the ape is not in there. All right, so here's another one. Watch again. Same sort of procedure unfolds. This is Natsuki. Keeper looks, goes away. Here comes the ape. Attack. This provokes the revenge. Ape hides in the hut in full view of the keeper. Natsuki anticipates and looks to that hut. Okay, again. Ape hides in full view of the keeper. Natsuki anticipates that the keeper will go after the hut that's got the ape in it. So now watch different. Ape goes into one hut. Keeper thinks the ape's in that hut. Ape changes huts. Ape runs away. What does the keeper think? The keeper doesn't know what I know. The keeper thinks that the ape is in the right-hand hut. Okay, so there's a lot of details here, and you're just getting the tiny little 2-minute video. But the idea is, and this has sort of been robustly confirmed with other sorts of experiments, the idea is that at some rudimentary level at least, the chimpanzee that's watching this whole thing unfold is keeping track of what the keeper knows and what the keeper doesn't know, and anticipating that the keeper will act on the basis of their information, which is false. The ape has left, but only I know that, the keeper doesn't know that, so the keeper's going to go after that hut where the keeper last saw the ape. So the conclusion then is great apes anticipate that other individuals will act according to false beliefs. Okay, that's a pretty sophisticated theory of mind, and that's keeping track of attention, because the chimpanzee is doing that by looking to see where the keeper is looking, paying attention. Sorry, the chimp that's watching is looking to see where the keeper's face is directed and where their eyes are pointed, and that's a heuristic for understanding where their attention is. The chimpanzee that's watching knows where the keeper, what's in the keeper's attention and what's not, what's in their mind and what's not in their mind. All right, so really cleverly constructed experiments like that, and there's a whole bunch of others, sort of help us see and seem to corroborate this evolutionary account of, sorry, there's another one. I thought I turned it off. All right, it's off now. So these sorts of experiments seem to corroborate this evolutionary account of by showing this continuum of development from great apes to humans, of which we're cousins, to show this continuum of this layered on capacity to keep track of what you know, what you don't know. I know that you don't know this and don't know that. And that's what makes for good episodes of Games of Thrones. Games of Thrones is us understanding all these complicated relationships about who knows what and who doesn't know what, and what kind of intrigue is going on between the characters, right? So that's all built out of theory of mind, and that all sort of unfolds from awareness in Graziano's sense. Okay, so another sort of pass to kind of get our head around this whole thing. I apologize. Well, I don't apologize. There's Justin Bieber. Um, we have lots of perceptions coming into our cognitive systems. Some of those perceptions catch my attention, that is bottom-up capture, or I direct my attention at them, boosting the details of my representation of it. That's your attention. That's what happens when you focus increased cognitive resources at some stimulus. And I can direct my attention to the fact that I or you have the capacity for attention itself. I can take note of my own or your ability to attend. I'm attributing awareness to myself or to you. I am modeling attention in this object. I do that with this attention schema, or the second order level of awareness. I realize that while my wallet got stolen, my attention was on the scenic overlook. Or that Bieber's thinking about himself, or he's aware of you thinking about himself at the moment. All right. So awareness is our representation of attention. Representations, when they're models, are simplified, inaccurate, reduced in detail and specificity. Look, there's too much information in your environment, even at the attention level, for you to be able to process all of it. It's always about a computational load. And you got to make fast decisions with that function well enough for you to get by. You don't have to know everything about everything. You just need to know enough to sort of survive. So we get these rendered down accounts. But again, I think it's not just that it's simplified or merely that it's inaccurate. It's that it's fundamentally different. I mean, the world, this is weird. We know this all the way back from John Locke. The world doesn't have blue objects in it. It's just blue is one of the manifestations of this internal mind relationship I have. When certain kinds of electromagnetic radiation, certain wavelengths of EM radiation strike my eyeballs, then I have the subjective sensation of blue, but blue doesn't live out there, nor does anything else. We just get this rendered down representation of a world that's good enough for us to get by and function. Attention has evolutionary advantage, we've argued, in selectively allowing more cognitive resources to be devoted to events and objects that are more important. Modeling attention itself as awareness has evolutionary advantages in social animals. That's what this woman's doing, right? She's hamming it up for the camera because she knows what you know, and she knows that they don't know it, and that's what makes it funny, that her friends don't know she's doing that, and she's doing that for you. The audience is watching the whole thing. Modeling attention in others lets me know what they know and what they don't know, what they're thinking about, what I'm thinking about, and enables this sort of profound next meta layer of complexity to the way that we can keep track of objects in our world and what kind of objects they are. Okay, so Graziano says, in this extension of the attention schema theory, awareness first evolved to help control one's own attention, and then gradually expanded into another use that has ended up defining us humans socially and culturally. It gave us our concept of mind and allowed us to live immersed in a society of the minds of other people. Okay, so this theory, says Graziano, being a good scientist, produces some predictions. So he wants to test it. So I'll give you a little bit of the research here that tests it. That seems to be consistent with what we've been arguing. A little bit of the argument in favor of the conclusions. So in bottom-up cases of attention capture, zombie agents discriminate some stimuli and then force the boost in signal enhancement. So you're not able to prevent your mind getting taken over by the bug that flies into your eye, just grabs your attention and forces you to act, or the loud noise that makes you jump. You can't stop that. Okay, so those are zombie agents. That's not you sort of directing those consciously, and they just capture your attention. So employing awareness as an attention schema, that is from the top down, might assist top-down control or direction of signal enhancement. Okay, so that's the hypothesis. So the prediction then that Graziano makes, or that some of the researchers do in the research, is that without awareness, attention should still be possible, but it should suffer a deficit in control. So his idea is that awareness is for controlling attention. It's for keeping track of what am I looking at right now Is it the thing I should be looking at, or is it something else I should be looking at in task behaviors? Okay, so here's an experiment. Subjects are instructed to fixate on a central location on a screen, and a cue is briefly presented on one side or the other. I can't really animate it, but imagine a yellow dot is flashed on the right, or a yellow dot is flashed on the left. And here's the instruction that the subjects get. If you see a cue on the right-hand side of your screen, then we want you to look for the target. We're going to flash something else at you, like a dollar sign or something. We want you to look for your target on the left-hand side, on the opposite side. If the cue is on the left, then you should look for your target on the right. Okay, so you've got this instruction that takes some executive control. It takes you resisting some of this bottom-up capture. So you've been told, okay, if it flashes on the right, I need to look left. Okay, that's a pretty complicated level of modeling your own attention and then guiding it or directing it to some other region of space. The cue then draws automatic bottom-up attention to itself. Like that flashing yellow dot, you can't not see it, and you can't not have it sort of grab some of your cognitive resources when it flashes on the screen. So when subjects are aware of the cue, that is, take subjects, and assume what they did was that they had some subjects that they told them, we're going to flash a yellow dot on the right-hand side of the screen or the left-hand side of the screen, then we want you to do this. Okay, now if they had that instruction ahead of time, they were better able to control this initial contrary attentional effect. So what's happening is that yellow dot flashing over on the right is pulling you to the right, but you need to look to the left at the awareness level. So it does it, the yellow dot pulls you over there, but then you're directing, because you knew it was coming, you're able to still keep on task and look for the object on the left. And I didn't look up this particular study, but probably what they were doing is measuring reaction time or something like that. And then what happens as a result is they were able to pull attention away from the cue and direct it to the opposite side where the target was most likely to appear, the ones who knew. In contrast, when participants were unaware of the cue, when they hadn't been warned and they weren't anticipating it, the bottom-up pre-potent effect dominated, biasing attention to the side that the cue appeared, ultimately to the detriment of task performance on these trials. So with the people that they didn't tell them that you should look to the left or look to the right when the cue happens, they didn't do as well. They suffered on the scores on the test because they weren't guiding, they weren't modeling, weren't sort of actively keeping track of where their attention was. So they weren't engaging the awareness. Okay, another experiment. Subjects performed a centrally presented letter discrimination task. So imagine I'm assuming it's something like this. We're going to put a T in the middle of the screen while a distracting dot motion stimulus was presented in the periphery. Okay, so you're looking at the T and the red dots bouncing around on the edges. Performance on the letter task was actually better when the subjects were aware of the distracting motion. And I assume they took some people and just said, we want you to focus on the thing in the middle. But they didn't tell them anything about the red dot. And then when you start flashing the red dot on them, their performance goes down. But if you tell some people and have them anticipating it and they know it's coming, their performance improves. When the distracting motion was sub-threshold and subjects were unaware of it, right? So the same result comes out of this case. In other words, when participants were aware of the distracting motion, they were capable of controlling their attention, keeping it from the distracting stimulus and on the task. Okay, so this is some of the evidence that Graziano thinks helps support this account of the function of awareness as defined. Awareness is an attention schema, and it lets us guide or direct or steer where attention goes because you're modeling your own attention and in other people. And some of the ape research or the chimp research also shows us about the presence of both attention and awareness in these other creatures. So we're getting lots of interesting empirical research that seems to support elements of the theory. Okay, both studies show, perhaps counterintuitively, that the more noticeable noisy stimuli have less of a negative impact on the assigned task but when you're engaging your awareness. Awareness is the key. Modeling our own attention by representing the self as trying to complete an attention task, boost performance because you're doing this thing. Stay focused, move my attention over there because I just got this distracting thing. Don't be distracted by the red dot. Don't be distracted by the yellow dot. Stay focused on, the task at hand. So that's you steering with your attention because you know what your attention's doing. I model my attention, keep it focused, suppressing distraction, and performance improves for those people. So that's what it's for. Okay, so here's what we've seen big picture at the end of both these lectures. The brain computes a simplified model of the process and current state of its own attention, and the content of this model is the basis of subjective reports. I'm aware of X. That is, I am aware of X. So now we've got this more technical notion of awareness. What does that require? It requires all of these elements. Stimulus X needs to be encoded as a representation. It needs to be something that's in my cognitive system, competing with other stimulus representations for limited brain resources. So I've got to attend to it. First I need to perceive it. And if stimulus X wins this signal competition, because there's all this other cognitive work going on, resulting in its being deeply processed in the brain, then stimulus X is attended. I can focus and now say, well, I'm looking at the vertical edge on my computer monitor right now. So that idea just won this competition for all the things that are in my peripheral vision or in my field of vision right now. That's the one that I just talked about, I pointed at, and that got more attention. To report subjective awareness of stimulus, which is what I did. I said, I am thinking about the vertical edge on my monitor. The brain has to compute a model of the process of attention itself. I'm reporting about what I'm attending to. So I've got to do that second level modeling. The complex phenomena of a stimulus being selectively processed by the brain, attention is represented in a simplified model and attention schema, says Graziano. This model leaves out all of the mechanistic details of the actual phenomena of attention. Instead, it depicts a mysterious, physically impossible property, awareness. All right, so some of the sort of most intriguing aspects of the philosophical problem about what is the nature of the content of consciousness, the so-called heart problem, is getting exposed and revealed here by the nature of this cognitive system that thinks about itself. Part of the problem here is that you've got a system trying to understand itself, and that creates this gap in the reports and the way it's going to render itself to itself. That becomes this kind of special, phenomenal, qualitative set of properties that are not like other things because they're the output of this awareness system that's modeling attention. All right, so that's Graziano's attention schema theory of awareness.